Hi good people, Titus here for part 7 of the Qbert mini-series, and in this video we'll set up the win condition code to trigger a widget to show that the player has won the level. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so last starting off we finished off our death code. There is an issue with some of the movement though. You'll notice if I jump off the edge I can continue to jump. And then that's going to mess with basically the player pawn. So what we can do to actually fix that is let's open up our Qbert and let's go down to the movement code. Essentially we just want to make sure that the movement doesn't happen when the player is still mid-jump, and also when they're make sure when they're not dead. The mid-jump thing is kind of tricky because we got code for jumping right now, but it works off the timeline. The timeline, however, is not going to be able to calculate if Qbert jumps over the edge because he falls for a lot longer. So we'll need some extra Boolean checks. So we can drag the is dead, and then we can pull off that into a not Boolean. And then we need to come into an and Boolean. And then we need to add a pin. Now a good way to check if Qbert is in midair is we can do an is falling check. We use the character movement component, and part of that has the is falling check. And then just so you can see how this is working, we come into a tick function and do a print string. Drag that into there. Then you can see it evaluates to false unless Qbert jumps. And you'll see it evaluates to true while Qbert is mid-air. And then it evaluates to false when his feet basically touch the ground, when he stops falling basically. So we'll make use of this here. And we can come into another not Boolean. Drag this into here, and then this code should work. Now normally you would just be able to get away with using the is falling and get rid of the is jumping, and if you wanted to do that you can, but you may notice that on the up level jumps, so if you jump up and to the right or up and to the left, that collision happens a lot quicker, so Qbert's not really in the air. So the is falling is going to basically trigger false a lot quicker than on the downward jumps. So you'll have to adjust the length of your timeline, or you'll have to adjust the speed of like the animation or the movement. So you have a few ways to kind of address that. It's going to be a little bit of tweaking. If you don't want to deal with that, you can just simply add the 3 Boolean checks and then it should work just fine. So I'm going to shift select these like so. And then I can press Control D, duplicate them out, and then I'm just going to rinse and repeat that for the various movement components here. And then we can replace the condition. And that should fix our movement code. So now Qbert shouldn't be able to move if he's dead, if he's in the middle of his timeline jump, or if he's falling off the edge. And you notice if I spam the jump button, he's not actually jumping until he actually spawns, and then he can actually move around like normal. And that looks pretty good. Alright, but let's go back and create our win condition. So we're going to head over to the widgets folder. And then we can just right click, user interface, widget blueprint, choose user widget. I'm going to call it WBP_win. Open that up, and this will be a pretty simple widget, so there's not going to be much to it. You can make these as elaborate as you want, but I'm going to add a canvas panel starting off. And then I'm going to add text. I'm going to go to anchors, hold control, click center, Go back to anchors, hold shift, click center. And then I'm going to set the text to just something simple like you win. I want the size to maybe be 200. Check the size to content so it recenters the text. And then I'm going to set the font to maybe pixel 2, so it looks something like that. The other thing I'll want to do too is add an image. And I am going to anchor to full screen, so I'm going to hold Control. And that'll make the image a little bit wider. I'm going to set the Z order to -1. And then the text, well actually let's go back here. And then let's make the color, we'll do black. And the Z order on the text will be 0, so it'll be in front. If you add the canvas panel and then the image and then the text, you should be fine. If not, then you might just have to adjust the Z order, but no biggie. And then I'm going to come into a horizontal box. I'm going to anchor that at bottom, so hold Control, then hold Shift, and then maybe I'll bump it up to 2. Yeah, maybe I'll do 3. And then I'll do size to content. And then I'm going to add a text element inside the horizontal box, so I'll nest it there. And then I'm going to select it. And I'm going to do score and a semicolon, or I guess regular colon, and then a space. And then I'm going to set this to 65. And I'll do pixel 2. And I think that looks okay. So I'm going to right click on that and duplicate it. But this one is going to be a variable called score. So I'm going to check that is variable. And I'm going to set the text to 0. So this is going to be my basic canvas panel. So nothing too crazy here. But I do want to add an animation. So there's an animation option here. Just click on that. Do a new animation called you win. And then I can add a track. You can actually animate individual components, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to do a reference to this, which is the entirety of the widget. And then I'll hit the plus sign to add color and opacity. Expand that out. I'm going to set the opacity to 0 starting off, and then after 2 seconds, I'm going to blend into an opacity of 1. So it just sort of does this little thing. And then I think that looks good enough for this. So what I can do is click off the animation, and then we're going to go into the graph editor. And we're just going to be working with pre-construction and construction. So pre-construction, I want to do a cast to the game mode that we created in the earlier video. Drag into this into a get game mode. I'm not going to bother promoting it to a variable because it's just going to use it the one time, but as the game mode, if you remember, we created a score variable, so we can get the score. And then I can just drag the score variable over here, which is a reference to this little 0 right here. So I can drag that and tell it to set text. And then the text I want it to insert is whatever the score value currently is. And then on a successful cast, I can do that here. And that pretty much completes the pre-construction. Now on the construction, what I want it to do is I want it to get the animation you win, and I want it to play that animation. And the defaults are going to be fine for this, but after it plays the animation, I want it to wait maybe 5 seconds. And then after that, I want it to open level by name. And normally we'd be doing level 2, or you'd be doing like main menu. But since we don't have those yet, we'll just do level 1, and it'll reload the same level. And that pretty much completes the code for the widget. But this code isn't being called from anywhere yet. So We've been doing a lot of our handling inside our game mode, so I think we'll stick to that. So we'll open the game mode up, and we already have a number of different functions here. I think the decrease the cubes is probably a good place to put it. So let's create another custom event. Title it "You Win," and then on the decrease cubes, I want to come into a branch, and then I want to check if the cubes are equal to 0. So did we flip all the cubes? If we did, we should run "You Win." If we did not, then do nothing. We can then come down into the "You Win," and this one's pretty simple. We're just creating the widget. The widget we're creating is the one called "Win" that we made just a little bit ago. And then we can drag off either of these pins and do "Add to Viewport." And it should be that simple. Now there is an issue with the code too. I noticed when I was testing, when we were fixing the movement, this first cube isn't being grabbed. So there's 28 cubes in the scene. It triggers this cube, but it doesn't lower the score. That has to do with the delay we added in the event begin play of Qbert. We're doing that so the current location gets set correctly. This isn't going to be an issue when we get the flying saucer going, because Qbert's going to like come from another area anyways. But we can just remove this or set it to a lower value like 0.2. And then that first cube should flip, and you see it's at 27. So now if we flip the rest of our cubes, like so, it should call the win condition state, which will basically bring up that widget on the screen. It'll play the animation. Once it's done, it should load level 1 again, because we haven't created level 2 or any main menus. And if I did it right, you'll see it right there. And then it got the score right as well. So alright, good people, we'll cut it here to keep it short, but in the next video we'll cover the lose condition, so we can give the player that game over state when they run out of lives. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.